Welcome to the Simple and Deep podcast, where we delve into attachment, stories, and intentional living. I'm your host, Wysteria Edwards, and I'm thrilled to have you here with me today. We'll be exploring the depths of all of these topics together, sharing insights and unlocking the power hidden within your story. Let's get started. In today's episode, we're going to dive into the concept of avoidant attachment and explore the impacts that it has on all of our relationships. Let's begin with Jane's story. Jane walks into her classroom, the bright colors and cheerful decorations no longer bringing her any joy. She greets her students with a fake smile, hiding the exhaustion and dread that fills every day. As she begins to teach, Jane notices a student who is more withdrawn than usual. She tries to approach him, but his tears only seem to intensify when she gets closer to him. Feeling overwhelmed, Jane asks for help from her colleagues, but to her dismay, they just tell her that she needs to be more empathetic and nurturing. Jane has always struggled with forming close relationships with people. Even as a child growing up in an unstable household, made it very difficult for her to trust other people and to express her emotions openly. And as much as Jane loves teaching kindergarten, sometimes it feels like an impossible task trying to educate children, but also provide emotional support when it's needed. Around 25% of people worldwide have avoidant attachment. It's also influenced by the culture and the society and personal factors, of course. Avoidant attachment is more common in men, 34% compared to women, which is about 18%. Single parenting has been linked to avoidant attachment in children, with kids from single parent households exhibiting higher levels of avoidant attachment in the classroom. Let's quickly review what an attachment style is before we dive into this topic. At its most basic level, an attachment style is developed during early infancy. It's based on the relationship that we have with our primary caregiver. In fact, nobody else influenced your brain more than your mother or your primary caregiver. Our attachment style influences everything in our lives: how we interact, how we form relationships, how we give and receive love, and if we really trust people and the world around us. As we look a little bit more into attachment, you will see that it is not something that goes away as we grow. It is something that stays and influences the choices we make, the people we love, and the interactions and conflicts that we have. For a deeper look at attachment as a whole, I would encourage you to go back to our episode entitled Attachment Isn't Velcro, where I go over the 4 attachment styles of children: secure, avoidant, anxious, and disorganized. Secure attachment involves trust, love, and the ability to rely on other people to support us. It stems from our primary caregivers being responsive, not just meeting our needs, but how fast they met our needs. Now, we all know that life happens and moms get busy. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying, did the infant feel as though their needs were being met, they were loved, and that they could trust their primary caregivers to come when they signaled with a cry? Because that happens, that exchange, it's like putting money in a bank, that reciprocity of going back and forth. It stems from them being responsive and being what we call a secure base that a child can return to over and over again to get the care consistency and the attunement that they need. And that nurtures independence, autonomy. They become a separate person and they're able to develop emotionally. These early experiences foster our sense of being loved, supported, and that we are worthy of affection and care. It instills in us the confidence that we have a world that is safe to explore and to learn from, and that people will be there if we need to discuss anything or if we need to know that the world is safe. We are made to be in relationship. We are image bearers. If we truly believe that there is a God who created us or a universe, then we're created to be in relationship with each other. When our relationships are broken and our trust is broken, because attachment is our first heartbreak, then The only way that we can heal is through relationship. That is what is so beautiful about our nervous systems when we are holding babies, is that the baby is not able to emotionally regulate themselves. So we are holding them, rocking them, soothing them, comforting them, giving them the nurturance that they need so that things will go back to being okay. In contrast to secure attachment, insecure attachment styles, such as avoidant, anxious, or disorganized, emerge from inconsistent, unresponsive, or even harmful interactions with our caregivers. Developmental trauma is trauma that is reoccurring over our developmental years where we did not get enough of the good things that we needed. So what does avoidant attachment look like in children? As the name suggests, children with avoidant attachment have difficulty forming emotional connections and attachments to other people. It's just not solid. This behavior can stem from a lack of consistent love and care from that primary caregiver. The primary caregiver, when they were tending to the infant and the young child, are vacant and rejecting or dismissing. They're only present because they're doing a task for the child, but they don't really interact with the child or ask the child how they feel about things, entertain questions, or enter in and attune to the child's emotional experience. They're regularly unresponsive and they withdraw from connecting, bonding, and affection with the child. When the child wants to go and hug them, they will often push the child away or they won't receive it. That is pretty typical of what you're going to see with that interaction between the mother and the infant. Children with avoidant attachment start out with an authentic self, but they learn to hide and replace it with a false self as a security strategy. They may actually appear to be very independent, longing for emotional connection and intimacy, but they've learned that the world does not care about meeting their needs. It's important that we allow children, to be 5, to be 6, because it goes so fast. I am fervently, in a gritty, justice-seeking way, passionate about preserving childhood because it's disappearing before our eyes. The world really rushes the time between birth and consumer for children. It's imperative that we bring back wonder, curiosity, play, and the ability to sit with a child and not have all the answers, but to know that because we are sitting with them and we are with them, that we can weather the storms of life. So avoidant attachment in children, some characteristics you're going to see are these kind of things. They're going to feel emotionally detached. They'll often appear distant and unresponsive, especially in situations that trigger emotional reactions. They'll fall down and they'll act like it didn't hurt. I've been on the playground before and I've said, can't believe you're not crying. That would hurt. And they just look at me like, why would I cry? It's almost like their reactions are not going to meet the expectation of the moment. That is also something that's going to pop when you're an adult, is that you're going to have reactions that do not fit situations. Either you're underreacting, like a hypo-arousal, or you're hyper-aroused and overreacting. Those are signs of childhood trauma that have burped out into our life. Excessive independence. This may display at an unusual level of self-reliance for their age. Avoiding seeking any help or comfort from others. I've had children that get angry at their own need because they think that children are not allowed to have any needs, that they are not allowed to have sadness or frustration. And I have to remind them, I am here to help you. I'm here to guide as your teacher. I'm here to help you learn how to do it. I'm here to help you learn to tie your shoes. But if they can't do it right away, that perfectionism, that rigidity is something that I have now learned to recognize as avoidant attachment. Avoidance of physical contact. Physical expressions of affection, like hugging or cuddling, may seem uncomfortable for them, like I said before. Lack of trust. They often find it super hard to trust other people, leading to difficulty forming close relationships. They will walk around alone at recess, and when we talk about who did you play with, they will say no one. And so we have to go through a lot of explaining to them, role modeling, talking a lot about it, reading lots of books about it, initiating play, asking people to play that are lonely. So I will tell my kindergartners before they go outside, what are we going to do? And they're, look for lonely people, right? Look for a friend who's sitting alone. We have a buddy bench that people can go sit on if they need someone to play with. And we're starting to train the children that they need to go over and ask, would you like to play with us? And then if someone asks to play with you, always say yes. Nobody likes to be with somebody that says no and excludes people. And we work on that, right? But that's part of the developmental process of being in kindergarten, is that you can have more than one friend and you look for lonely people. And then when someone says at community circle at the end of the day that they didn't have someone, then we instantly say, who would have played with them? And everybody puts their hands up and we're like, yeah, you had friends. So we need you to be brave. And Mr. Rogers talks about growing on the inside and growing on the outside. And that's one of those things too. Defensiveness. This may become a real problem when they become defensive about being vulnerable. So they've made a mistake, especially when it comes to relationships. So remember, we were broken in relationship. And so that is where you're going to see a lot of these things manifest, is that they have a conflict with someone out at recess and they will not own it, no matter what I say. And that person is crying, or I witnessed it, and they will not want to say that they are sorry. They will not want to own their mistake because they're struggling to identify, express, or manage the feelings. And it's leading them to potential emotional outbursts or withdrawal. Then what a lot of them will do is they will bury their face. They will get embarrassed. The shame is so massive because shame is a lie that someone else or a situation taught you about yourself. A small child is egocentric, so they don't realize that everything isn't about them and that they don't cause everything to happen. Child is going to see that because they made a mistake, they are bad. Not a working model. It's the narrative. It's the thing that they hear. I heard recently that self-criticism is like background music that we have gotten so used to hearing and carrying around with us that we don't even realize that it's influencing us. A long time ago, I had a group of students and I played some instrumental music behind them as they were writing, and Schindler's List came on by John Williams. One of my little boys turned to me and said, I'm so sad. And I asked him why. And he said, this music makes me so sad. And I think that's how self-criticism is, that it's this internal working monologue that we have. And for an avoidant child, it's that you are a failure. And for an anxiously attached child, it's you're going to be left. You're going to be rejected. They don't like you. This person's going to stop loving you. Those core wounds continue to follow us. And we look through that wound and we respond through that wound. When a child chooses to work with you and allow you to guide them to a place of emotional safety when they have been wounded, that is actually what's going to create new neurological connections in their brain. So our left brain is that logic base. But when we are upset and we are triggered, we are flooded with cortisol and all of those different chemicals in our bodies because we are wounded or we are afraid, our responsive system is coming on, then it's like we flip our lid. So all of our cognitive abilities, our hippocampus turns off, all of those things happen. First and foremost, we have to ask children how they feel in their body. And if I see that they're going to a place of shame, I ask them, is your tummy hurting? Are you feeling tight in your body? And they'll usually say yes. I noticed that a little boy's ears would turn red when he was upset. Those kind of things, telling them what we noticed. You might be feeling sad or you might be feeling shamed. And you are not bad. And it is okay to make a mistake. Mistakes show me that we're learning, we're growing on the inside. May I please help you? May I please come alongside you? Fred Rogers said it's always easier to deal with hard things when we have people who love us beside us. And that is exactly what we have to do with avoidant children, especially because they have been wounded. Their whole body, their whole being, their whole heart believes that the people that love me or that take care of me are not going to really show up for me when I need it emotionally. And those emotions, they're death. If you were told that water was bad for you. And then you went to school and every day you had to get into the pool during PE. That literally would feel like you were going to die every single day. I need you to understand, if you do have avoidant attachment, that it was not okay for your needs to not be met emotionally. And what you're going to do is you're going to go right to logic. You're going to be like, but my parents did the best job they knew how to do. But it wasn't okay if you started out life thinking that you had to do things for yourself. A child should be able to rest with ease and peace. We all want peace. We crave peace. What gives children this lasting peace is knowing that they are cared for and that their feelings are mentionable and manageable by the people that they love and trust. But that is the greatest tragedy of insecure attachment, because it breaks our trust in every way, in ourself, in our caregivers, in the world, and with God. That is what it is. It's broken trust. Also, when children are defensive, when they've made a mistake in relationships, be careful that you don't automatically think that they have psychopathy. It's really that feeling of indifference should be a red flag to you that they're feeling vulnerable. And that is where they need a lot emotional support. They have difficulty expressing their emotions. They're going to often struggle with identifying the emotion. How do they express it? How do they manage it? And then when they do have an emotional outburst, it's going to feel really out of place. That is why I love using Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood, because it normalizes all of that. What do you do with the mad that you feel when you feel so mad you could bite? When my son, my oldest that has avoidant attachment, was upset, he would go from doing a puzzle quietly to biting someone, which seemed incredibly extreme. And then he'd go back to playing with this puzzle. And people might be like, oh my God, that's scary. But for him, okay, now he got it out of his system. He's ready to go back because that was too much, right? And I thought that he was just such a self-reliant baby. Like he just could entertain himself. He learned that I was too distracted by my own emotional needs. And so he learned how to cope. I want to give you an example of this, of a way that I've witnessed it firsthand in my classroom. I've given you a couple examples, but this is actually an excerpt from Waiting for Mr. Rogers, which is available in bookstores now. I want to just go over this story of David. He was a classic example of avoidant attachment. And also that child that people were like, oh, he's so compliant, all of those kind of things. And we miss avoidant attached children all the time because we think that they're on task. And they're riddled with anxiety. They're just not going to show it on their faces. David is crazy about Brianna. They attend the same church and their mothers are part of various clubs where they often interact outside of school. It's natural for children to pair up with familiar faces in the classroom. And these two are no different. I will occasionally see him rub her back or say something kind to her while she's creating at the art center. When we write about people that we love, he adds her name to our list. David comes to school ready to learn. His mother, a certified teacher, spent the time teaching him his letters and numbers, so he is a self-reliant little boy. He's tall, quiet, and kind, rarely speaking, and always on task. Shortly before Thanksgiving, a colleague who had David's older brother comes up and finds me in the hallway. Do you have Simon's little brother in your class? His dad moved out this weekend, she tells me. My heart sinks. Divorce is always challenging, but it's devastating and frightening to a kindergartner. The news puts me on high alert. Knowing David displays avoidant attachment, I realize it's going to probably come out in different ways. Behavior, dramatic play, physicality, maybe during writing or emotional distress over something minor. I begin to observe him and wait for the right time. Children will always signal the correct time if we listen and remain available. Anything you want to talk to me about? I ask him, ruffling his blonde hair during free play. He's focused on the Play-Doh. I'm making a rocket, he says, smiling up at me. I say to myself, it's not the right time. 2 days later, though, it is. When Brianna comes inside from recess in tears, David wouldn't play with her outside as he usually did, and he had been cruel. When I call him over to the table where she and I are seated, he quickly sits down and diverts his eyes. I was sad to hear that you said that Brianna had an ugly face at recess. He bores a hole in the table with his gaze. You love your friend Brianna. Can you see that she's sad right now? He looks at her and nods. I know that you didn't mean those angry words, David. And I don't think she's who you're angry with. I choose to lean into the pauses, watching his body, his breathing. Even with his head bent low, I notice his ears have started to turn red, and he sucks in his breath with short, labored chops. David, are you angry with your daddy? His tears come as a sweet release. Big, raking sobs heave his tiny body. Tears are so healing. Brianna places her hand on his arm and rests her head against him. I'm sorry you're sad, David. Her compassion makes him cry harder. David wraps his arms around her in a hug and cries his heart out. Sometimes all we need is a good cry and a bit of understanding. Fred Rogers believed in genuine connection with children. If a child trusts you, very often, what happens to be in his or her mind will just spill out. It's true. I've had countless moments where children barely make it inside the door before they're disclosing abuse, sharing joy, revealing traumatic events that they've witnessed, and detailing their fears. As they see the face of sweet relief, the dam simply bursts. Their nervous system signals safety to them, and the floodgates open. The way you are right now, the way down deep inside you, it's you I like. David was convinced that he was supposed to navigate the big feelings all by himself. Avoidantly attached children see adults as rejecting or dismissive. He'd been living with a mother who did all she could to hide her chaos. He wasn't allowed to discuss his feelings with anyone because it might expose the lies of her marriage. As the details emerged, I learned that the home situation was filled with screaming, depression, and infidelity. His mother had needed a compliant little helper as she was profoundly depressed and had been focused on her crumbling marriage for years. Research tells us that an avoidant attachment is developed when an infant has caregivers who aren't emotionally present or responsive. Parents may discourage or ignore outward signs of emotions and distress, such as crying, and actively separate from them due to their inability to cope with it. They often have unrealistic expectations of their children emotionally, academically, and developmentally. When children have needs, they are often met with harsh, abrasive, and neglectful responses, causing the children to retreat into themselves. Emotions are not okay or welcome, and they're shamed if they allow feelings to make any appearance. Although the overwhelming feelings cause a disconnect for the caregiver, the child takes on the shame and receives some clear messages. I'm bad, not welcome or enough. Be good. Don't make a scene or let others know that you have a need. Avoidantly attached children are easily missed in the classroom setting or family system. Our attention is just naturally pulled to overt behaviors in the classroom setting or when two or more children are present. The squeakiest wheel gets the most oil, so we need to look and listen more carefully. How does that manifest into adulthood? It's not as if we just automatically lose our attachment systems as we grow. We get more clever and more diversified with how we hide it and live with it. We will choose situations, we will choose partners, we will choose professions so that we can be safe. In fact, we will take less risks. We will avoid discomfort as a whole to make sure that we survive. You're going to see emotional unavailability in an avoidantly attached adult. They will keep their feelings under wraps to avoid vulnerability. They're going to shy away from really super close relationships, finding intimacy uncomfortable or invasive. You're not going to know a lot about someone who has avoidant attachment in a workplace setting. You'll realize at a party that you've never really heard about their spouse, or they don't put up a lot of personal pictures in their classroom, or they don't want to share about their weekend. And also, as an avoidant attached person explains their childhood to you, it will all be factually based when they engage their stories. They're not going to tell you about how those things made them feel, because that was underdeveloped in childhood because it was not appropriate. These individuals are going to be extremely, excessively self-reliant, preferring to handle every problem independently rather than to seek support or help. Definitely hate group projects. Definitely get annoyed when people stay in the weeds. They want to be on the road heading from point A to point B, and they're color coding it and they're logically based. And so the minute someone comes in with big emotions or they are challenging how we're getting from A to B, there could be a major problem. They're going to avoid physical affection because it's going to make them uncomfortable. So they're not going to want to be hugged. They're not going to want to hold hands. They're not going to want to turn and greet someone at church. They're not going to want to pray with a stranger. My husband used to be like, oh my God, I hate it when the pastor says, turn to your neighbor and pray. Those are the kind of things that will make someone very uncomfortable. Especially if you're working with young children and you are an avoidant, those hugs, their hands are dirty and they're trying to touch you. All of those kind of little things are going to drive you insane. Dismissive attitudes towards things. So they may display a dismissive attitude towards feelings of other people or their needs, focusing predominantly on their own independence. I have had administrators where I was pouring my heart out, crying even over something that I felt that a child needed. And they looked at me as if I had no clue how important it was that we just got a task done. When for me, the most important thing that we were discussing was the emotional welfare of the child. And so this is where I continue to butt heads with a lot of people, is that I'm looking at it in the long term, but they also feel like they're looking at the long term of the growth and the data. And it's not that those things aren't important, but what happens is it's literally like being on two separate sides of a river when we emotionally dysregulate. So one side is rigidity and the other side is chaos. Emotions feel chaotic to an avoidant, and the rigidity of an avoidant feels awful to an anxiously attached person who is feeling all of their feelings at the same time. And that's going to make the anxious feel dismissed. It's going to make the avoidant person feel cornered. It's going to make them feel defensive because they are going to want to dismiss it and get away. Discredit it, dismiss it, devalue it. They're going to want to stop it because it's just getting out of control. Because my husband has avoidant attachment, if I start to get passionate about something, he'll say, stop yelling. And I'm like, I'm not yelling. I'm just telling you this really matters to me. But for him, it's yelling. It's starting to take off. It's like that. It's escalating. And that's going to make him feel unsafe. They really value their privacy and their personal space, sometimes to the point of isolation. So if someone is a classic avoidant, I will have to go and find them to ask them a question. They're not going to come find me. They're going to be super neat about their space. Everything is color coordinated. Everything is put together because order is predictable. So the children in my care, they want to know what the schedule is. They want to know what time we go to lunch. This is my cubby. This is my box. These are my books. This is my place in line. And if someone takes that spot, now there might be a problem. So that's where you're going to see that, is that valuing privacy. And then they're going to have a really difficult time when people overshare because they have massive amounts of boundaries and they're going to feel like everybody else doesn't have any. So it's going to feel very extreme. They have a fear of commitments. Long-term commitment is really difficult. It's a fear. And it stems from that underlying fear of dependency and rejection that they felt as infants. That the longer I'm here, the more unsafe it becomes for me because somebody could change. Non-expressive communication is difficult for them, very flat. You'll probably, if you have avoidant attachment, have had people say to you, you're so hard to read. I'm not exactly sure what you're thinking. And that is because infants that have avoidant attachment learn to not show any emotional expression on their face because it was a cue to the mom that they had an emotion. It was trained out as well as it was underdeveloped in the brain. You're going to have to look for physicalities and things that they say or do and situations to help you understand what's going on with them. And if you are an avoidantly attached person, part of engaging your story, which is going to be the hardest thing ever, obviously avoidant attached people avoid engaging in their stories because it's terrifying. There might be way too much there. But the thing is that until we repair our attachment systems, we cannot impart that true security that we want to give our children. It's just not going to happen We can give them lots of good things, but we're not going to give them enough of what they need if we do not have enough of the good things that we need. That lack of trust can be super challenging, though, because it leads to difficulties forming and maintaining close relationships. And that even includes a counselor or a therapist, support group leader, a story work specialist, anybody that you're going to work with in that capacity. It's going to be really hard to trust that person because your trust is broken. And you're going to feel as if it's more work than it's worth. You're going to have difficulty expressing love. Despite your absolute desire for connection, children who have avoidant attachment have not heard words like, I love you enough. Maybe they've never heard them at all. And so when someone says that to you, it's going to make you very uncomfortable. And that is okay. It makes sense. They might come across as cold or indifferent to feelings and emotions, even though they don't feel them internally. If we were to look inside, there would be the same desires, the same needs, the same experiences that are being craved, but there's a block. It's like running into a wall emotionally. I don't know if any of these things have resonated with you, or you're like, oh my gosh, I know somebody that fits this. Don't worry, because I am going to continue to give you steps that you can take or that person can take to overcome avoidant attachment. But it's a journey. Fred Rogers told us that we need to be patient with all the things that are unresolved in our heart. To get you started on this transformation, we've created the simple and deep breakthrough blueprint, empowering the avoidant attached individual. And it's going to be the key for helping you break free initially. This blueprint is specifically designed for women with avoidant attachment styles, combining self-awareness with practical strategies so that we can help you navigate and conquer some of your fears, and to engage in this self-growth and cultivate the confidence and embrace vulnerability and pave the way for you to have more fulfilling, secure relationships. Don't let avoidant attachment continue to hold you back. So what I want you to do is I want you to download the blueprint by visiting the link in the show notes, or if you are on the website listening to this podcast, WysteriaEdwards.com, then I want you to download it from there. Also, make sure that you take our 60-second quiz. What's your attachment style? Because that's going to give you more insight and a customized report. Listen to the episode, Attachment Isn't Velcro, and grab your own copy of Waiting for Mr. Rogers, Teaching with Attachment, Attunement, and Intention. Now, this is not a book just for teachers. We are all teachers, foster parents, and helpers in this world. We need to go back and reparent the children that we were inside, that we still are in many ways. This book was created for you so that you can have freedom. Fred Rogers said it's the truth that makes us free. I'm learning to tell the truth. I'm learning to know the truth. Discovering truth is what makes me free. Our brain is plastic. Neuroplasticity is a tremendously powerful, wonderful thing, and it's possible. If you found that this podcast was helpful to you, I would love it if you were willing to share it with a friend and on your social media platforms. Our mission is to spread the powerful message. Thank you for tuning in to this episode of Simple and Deep Podcast. I hope that you enjoyed our conversation and found it enlightening and empowering. Remember, by understanding attachment, engaging your story, and living intentionally, we can transform our lives. Feel free to reach out with any questions you might have. And remember, until next time, take care of yourself because you are important.